Thank you to everybody that's here today and members of the LPSDO family and staff. And we have board members Barb Beyer, Richard McGinnis, Katie McLeese-Stevenson, and Don Mayu. Appreciate you being here on short notice as well too. And to the fire department that did a wonderful job last night and continues to control or try to get a fire that won't quit under control. I was amazed last night at 2 o'clock in the morning the number of people who were driving by the building and looking and feeling what we all feel today, and that is the loss of a building that we've been in for more than 3 decades, that has a great deal of memories and a tremendous amount of emotions that are attached to that. Not to mention all of the personal belongings and professional belongings that, for all intents and purposes, are gone now, because this fire that started in one isolated area in the southwest part of the building quickly manifested itself into a cauldron that despite some perceived help from the weather and a great fire department with just a tremendous response, was unable to contain in a way that was able to preserve any of the building at all. So those things that building represents, certainly we're all going to be going through a grieving process. Every one of us is being impacted differently. Every one of us probably wishes that we would have stopped by this weekend and picked up something, some file, some paperwork, something perhaps that we intended to get to first thing today. But sadly, and unfortunately, those are lost. And everybody that's a member of the LPSDO team and family and board and administration and all 7,000 employees are going through a grieving process right now that is very, very similar to the grieving that we do in our personal lives. This is a major loss, and it's not something that we're going to forget very easily. But I do know that there's plenty of grit and determination and resolve and commitment on the part of the folks that are gathered today and in our employ, that once we get through that grieving process, we're going to go to work to rebuild our building, and we're going to go to work to ensure that school starts exactly as it's intended to start, and that LPSDO will be up and running very, very quickly. And in fact, we hope by the end of this week, and to continue to move forward as aggressively as we can, knowing full well that it isn't going to be business as usual for us. And so the great interruption in our lives will be replaced by a great sense of resolve that we'll all bring to our workplace to make sure that through crisis and through this kind of a damaging experience, we'll emerge stronger as a school district, and we'll continue to keep our focus where that focus needs to be. The facts of the fire, really are few. Essentially, most of us received phone calls shortly after midnight last night that there was a fire. There were quite a number of people already on site. The fire department, again, did a tremendous job of getting to it. We were kept apprised through the morning with respect to what was happening, why it was happening, and several of us were holding out hope that some of the building could be preserved. But those of you that had a chance to either see the visuals or to see the actual burning last night knew that when you saw the spewing of the smoke and the orange and the fumes that were representing the fire, you knew that it was very, very significant and very, very serious. Kirk Langer of our team was working last night, was the first to notice that there was a smell of smoke, called it into 911. And it's not uncommon to have people working throughout the weekend in LPSDO. In fact, I remarked to several people last night that having somebody there and being able to spot that could have put us in a position perhaps to minimize the damage, because the response was so great. So thank you to Kirk for being the first one on the proverbial scene, and certainly that had to be very traumatic for him as well too, to realize that something very, very serious was taking place. Well, I think we're very, very grateful and very thankful that there were no injuries, and that, in fact, this happened on a holiday weekend where there wasn't anybody in the building, with the exception of Kirk and our custodial folks that earlier in the evening just did their normal walkthrough. And that the safety of our people is always going to be number one. So, you know, buildings can be replaced, papers can be replaced, but we can't ever replace people. So we're very, very grateful that, in fact, we didn't sustain any injuries, and that we're able to begin now to pick up the pieces and move forward. Well, LPSDO is the heart of the Lincoln Public Schools. It serves 36,000 students. And as we met early this morning, we quickly stopped lamenting the loss and began to think about what is the plan for us to go forward so that we can continue operations in a fairly seamless way, knowing that it'll never be completely seamless. And we have had just a tremendous outpouring of support from the community, beginning with Mayor Beitler earlier this morning, who very quickly offered the city's help in any way that we may need it. LEA has made similar offers with respect to office or space, time, and resources, and just countless others. Most of us can't be reached by phone, but I know everybody in this room has heard from somebody in the community asking how we can help. And as I've said many, many times in the community, you know, that kind of generosity that is borne out when people need help the most is really the hallmark of a tremendous community, and we're seeing that firsthand right now. I don't want to forget anybody, but I know I will. The University of Nebraska, of course, has made contact with us, as has Wesleyan and other institutions of higher education. Well, we're working on solutions, and while we don't have anything that we can put forward right now that represents a permanent solution, I can tell you we do have options. And earlier this morning, again at the invitation of Mayor Beitler, we visited the Experian building, and we were very impressed with that building as a temporary, short-term, stopgap opportunity for us to relocate quickly. And we're going to continue that conversation. We've thought about Lincoln East, and any of our high schools for that matter, with the idea that you know, the timing of this is such that we don't have students in school. Although we do have a lot of summer programs and a lot of staff and, you know, a lot of parents that use our facilities year-round, we could probably look at one of our high school facilities. We will be working with our insurance company, of course, in a very, very major way. The intent right now, today, not having had the opportunity to formally visit with our Board of Education, although we'll tell you that we have scheduled an emergency school board meeting tonight at 6:30 to invoke the emergency preparedness action plan that we need now to make decisions very, very quickly. And we haven't had a chance to visit with our board, but certainly right now the intent would be that we'll rebuild at another site and a location, and it'll be a newer building. So we have that to look forward to. Tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock, we've asked all of LPSDO employees to meet at Lincoln Southeast in the auditorium, where we hope to have more detail with respect to the plan. we would anticipate that probably for the greater part of this week, work is going to be very, very difficult. The exec team, Dr. Biggs, Dr. Moore, Mrs. Campbell, and Mr. Shepard will be working with their respective parts of the organization to figure out, beginning this afternoon, how do we keep things flowing. And we're going to be asking people to work from home until we can get some space that'll be more accessible. But we think we'll have a plan ready to go by tomorrow that'll have more detail. I mentioned that we'll have an emergency school board meeting at 6:30. That's going to be at the City Council chambers. And then, you know, I guess really I'll just close by saying this is going to be, crises have a tendency to bring people together in a way that yields just a whole bunch of heroes that maintain a focus on the critical mission of an organization. And our mission is kids. And our mission is community, and I envision that we will become stronger as a result of this. But we do have to have time to grieve, and we do have to have time to lament the fact that, that 30-plus years of being in a building is gone. But there will, that this ending will create new beginnings for us. And so we'll look forward to rolling out plans as they become available, and would say this to you again as I close. Thanks for your commitment to our school district. Thanks for your commitment to our mission. Thanks for the work that you're about to do to make this work in a way that, again, is going to bring us together in a stronger bond. So I guess with that, I would stop, and I would Chief Huff is here as well from the fire department. Not that I think there's any more of an update, but just as a sign of the partnership that we've had with them from the beginning. The fire is still burning. As I tried to get down on O Street on my way to East, I was pretty impressed by the number of people that are standing and watching, and because they have great interest. And then I heard the story of Ken Babcock was standing by Emeritus Building in his suit and tie, and somebody gave him a hard time about that. And he said, nobody said it was a casual day today. So I will tell you, as we look at temporarily relocating ourselves, and relocation is going to be the greater part of a year, that you know, we'll forego the dress code expectations and tell you to dress comfortably, because you're going to be moving stuff and crawling around. And I think if we're able to put the Experian package together, that we'll have office space that will be quite representative of the work that we're trying to do. So with that, I'll stop and answer any questions if there are any additional questions. And I appreciate Mark Shepard's here as well. He's working on the business side of the equation. Kirk, is Kirk here? Kirk Langer? Kirk's on his way. He's here. Dr. Moore and Dr. Biggs are here. If anybody has any specific questions, I'll underscore again, we can't get into the building. So trust me when I tell you I've tried, because everything is, the roofs are being collapsed in order to put the fires out. I've been assured that they'll try to salvage everything that they can. You know, how we go about ever reclaiming that, I don't know. But I think probably go into it at this point thinking that what is there is lost, and we'll have an opportunity to recreate those things. So I'll stop if members of the press have any questions.
Tell me more about the Experian building. Where is that?
The Experian building is out on West Bond Street. It's out by the air park. It's owned by the city, and we had an opportunity to go out there this morning and look at it. It's semi-furnished office space, 30,000 plus square feet. So we haven't spent a lot of time out there, but we just we're trying to line up our options. So that's one option, and you know, one option. Not a definite.
If you did go to Experian, could you stay there for a while?
Well, what we want to try to do is avoid having to make two moves. So if we could find, we started our meeting today thinking that we needed a place tomorrow, and then probably a place in 30 days. Because if we took a high school, we would have to be out of the high school by probably the beginning of July. So if there's an option out there for us where we can only make one move, and it's something that our insurance company will work with us on, I mean, certainly that's going to be in our best interest. With the idea that we'd stay the greater part of a year, maybe a year and a half, till we can, the Board of Education can make a decision as to when and where we could rebuild a LPSDO office.
And how do you, I mean, who do you talk to make that decision? Is it the city administration?
Well, I don't know. I don't know that I can answer that question right now. I think really it's going to start with our, you know, our board's going to talk about it a little bit tonight, and then you know, Mayor Beitler has gone, in my opinion, above and beyond to be accommodating and to essentially say, you know, whatever the city needs to do to help us get the guts of our organization under a roof to where we can conduct business. Certainly, they're willing to do. So I would anticipate that, you know, if that's the place that we would like to pursue, that we'll be able to pursue that.
Is that the top of the list, Experian?
Well, we don't really, we've just now started. I mean, we got people together at a little bit before 8 o'clock this morning. We're still weighing our options. We've heard in the community of other opportunities that people have made available to us. There's probably 8 or 9 or 10 locations. I don't know to what extent that, you know, we're gonna have time to research all of those, but we'll come out with information as quickly and as timely as we can.
Once you find a building though, then what? I mean,
I'm sorry?
once you find the building, then what? Right now, you don't have anything to put in it for people, right?
Yeah, yeah, oh. Once we find the building, then it's going to be a matter of deciding, you know, where do we put people strategically? And then, you know, the hardware, software, and the technology that goes into running a district of 36,000 students is way more complex than I can even imagine. And so I'm assuming that, you know, whatever decision we make in the next 24 hours, we're going to give ourselves the greater part of this week to begin the preparation for that.
Do you have a schedule on the timeline for when giving up the data systems might occur, financial or?
Yeah. You know, we don't. I know that our teachers, this is our teachers' last day today, and it was their day to record grades. And of course, they haven't been able to do that because our system's down. So, you know, I know Kirk, he's on his way, but I know he's been working with his team of technology folks to try to get us up and going as fast as we can. You know, we did have some backups. We do have backup servers, which is a real blessing to us right now because we're not going to lose critical records data. What's really going to be lost are the files that, you know, the paper files and the papers that people had on their desks and their workplaces. And I feel really badly for Dr. Moore, who did a tremendous job of following 200 plus students around, and I'm sure that that information is gone as well. So that's the kind of thing on a personal basis that, you know, we're all going to experience. So no timeline other than, you know, as quickly as possible.
How many workers are displaced by this?
We estimated this morning about 250. Oh, okay, yeah. Somebody might want to ask him if I messed up the answer to his question, and he can come up and correct me.
How many employees will go back to work then? If you have 30,000 square feet, you can't fit them all back.
Yeah, well, I think it's more than 30,000 at that particular site. But if you remember, we've been talking about relocation plans for a couple of major departments in LPSDO. So, you know, we'll look to expedite some of that. And, you know, our intent was to make ourselves a little bit smaller anyway by pushing some of our departments out to the buildings. And we'll probably put that into the planning in the next, during this week. So we don't know if it seems like there's a lot more square footage than 30,000 square feet there. It's a very, very large building, and location seems to be quite nice as well.
Why was it so difficult to bring the fire under control?
Yeah.
You don't answer that.
That's a little bit out of my area.
I came over this morning, first of all, to express our sadness of this loss. It's an incident that's going to affect our community, not just LPS, and it touches so many lives. We see these kinds of losses when we have a residential fire. This is multiplied 250 times plus, and it's an extraordinary challenge, and I know that our community is going to pull together and recover. I'm here basically to support you all. We are currently still on scene. We will be there for some time. What we're doing right now is what we call salvage and overhaul. That means we're chasing hot spots and areas that are still burning right now. Dr. Joel had asked if his office was intact, and I said, I don't think so. In fact, I don't think there's too much left there, and unfortunately, I hate to be the bearer of that bad news, but there's just not a whole lot left for us to salvage. As far as the fire incident itself, the investigation, they're trying to preserve the area of origin. That's always one of the things that we try to do so we can figure out exactly what started the fire. There was obviously an LPS employee present. We had a normal response for us for a structure fire. Units came from Piedmont, 50th and A Street, and North Cotner and Vine. That's a pretty standard configuration for us. They escalated that incident, meaning they called in additional resources. For us internally, this fire incident went to a 4th alarm. That's a very substantial incident in our operation. It involved all 4 of our aerial ladder trucks and 9 of our 14 engine companies and off-duty personnel. So it was an enormous effort just from the sheer number of people that responded. The actual fire spread very quickly. I'm not intimately familiar with the contents of the structure or the area of origin, but I understand there were lots of paper records, very combustible kinds of things, unfortunately. The initial fire area, our first in unit, as I understand it, met the LPS employee, said there's smoke in the building. He led them back. By the time he'd gotten back to where the fire had started, it had spread considerably. Now, understanding that the building's very large, very difficult to advance the hose line. One of our units relocated from the front of the building to the back, and by the time that all happened, it was pretty much well underway and very difficult to extinguish. Lots of combustibles in a space like this. The fire spreads very rapidly. The structural collapse occurred at some point where the roof caved in, and unfortunately that just compounds our challenges. So I'm not making excuses. It was obviously a tragic loss. We are very, very fortunate that there were no loss for LPS as far as individuals. We sustained a couple of minor injuries for firefighters. That's not uncommon in an operation like this. So we're blessed in that respect that there was no significant loss of life, obviously, and minor injuries only. But the cost of replacing this building and its contents, the contents, as you all will come to know, many of them are irreplaceable. Personal mementos, records, things that you've kept that you took for granted would always be in your office, they're probably all gone. So, and that's very, very unfortunate. I'll take any other questions if there are any. Otherwise, I'll turn the floor back over to Dr. Joel.
When will the investigation be?
Bill Moody, the chief of the Bureau of Fire Prevention Bureau, is on scene right now with his team of investigators. It's ongoing right now. Unfortunately, they can't get into some areas because it's still on fire. So as they are delayering the roof, moving it off of the combustibles, they'll extinguish it, and that'll give us access to the area that they need to see what may have caused this.
Any idea where it actually started?
I don't know. I'm not familiar enough with the building, and unfortunately, I just can't say.
Did the weather, the wind contribute to it?
Certainly, the wind was a contributing factor once the fire extended beyond the interior contents of the building. There was some discussion about lightning and the wind and the weather. This is a one-story building. Typically, aerial ladders are made for tall buildings. Fires in larger upper stories, that was not an enormous impact to us, other than we will use them just to deliver what we call master streams, large quantities of water. We do that routinely, but it was not a huge effect in this circumstance because this is just a one-story building.
So maybe speak a little bit to like code requirements. I'm assuming they were up to code, but it wasn't sprinkled. What are the requirements with regard to is that just updated?
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that. I'd defer that to the Fire Prevention Bureau and the building safety folks. I know we've partnered with LPS, and Bill and I had this conversation this morning that LPS had been renovating buildings and adding sprinklers as they renovated. That had been kind of a policy that adopted, and we appreciate that. That's certainly something that we strongly encourage. Dr. Joel?
Okay. Well, again, I'll say thank you very much for everybody being here, and tomorrow at 8 o'clock at Southeast in the auditorium, we'll have more specific details on the plan going forward, and appreciate all your thoughts and prayers and support of each other. And included in that is we intend to bring the crisis team tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock at Southeast for any of our employees who feel the need to extend their conversation. So appreciate it. Thank you, and have a good rest of the day.